Attitude is everything. It's in the way we dress, the way we speak, the way we conduct ourselves personally and in business. Attitude is how we interact, approach, and respond to those around us. It's in our outlook on life, and it is the main factor that stands behind our various successes and failures. If our attitude truly is the first thing people notice about us, well, what impression do we wish to leave? Today, I welcome back guest business professional, Rochester, New York financial advisor, James Farley of Northwestern Mutual, and Brooklyn, New York singer-songwriter Vanessa Silberman. I'm Amanda Ashley, and this is episode 58, Attitude. Welcome to Afternoon Cocktail. And welcome in rock star, Miss Vanessa Silberman. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, really awesome to have you. So what are you going to perform for us?
This song is called Back in the Day.
I love this one.
I remember being 16, hanging out watching MTV. No bills to pay, no place to be. Growing up seems so damn easy. Thinking about how it used to be. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. I remember high school class, wishing it got by real fast. Hanging out with the kids at the party. Gotta be smarter, look like Barbie. Thinking about how it used to be. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something to me when I had a song to play. Days I felt sad. 'Cause when you're young, things are sentimental. Just looking back, thinking about how it used to be. I remember dreaming about capital and paramount. Mom and dad, I don't need a degree. Rock and roll to succeed. Thinking about how it used to be. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something. Oh, back in the day, back in the day. Yeah, it meant something to me. Yeah, yeah. I remember being 16, hanging out watching MTV.
Yeah, I love that one. So much fun. So Vanessa, that song, you and I were talking a little bit before we went live. So your recordings they really grab my attention because your sound, I had mentioned this earlier, your sound is like 90s grunge meets pop. And I think like with your and what makes it sound a little bit poppy was the production. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your role in the whole production process of your tracks and everything that you've been doing?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I think the the goal that I have always had in mind with this song and the other recordings, especially this year, was really trying to capture the influence and style, like the grunge kind of raw style that I have that really comes off live, but also really give that extra pop production in the recording, so you really get like kind of something a little bit more extra special that's different, that doesn't take away from the live show, but it's just kind of you get a bonus, I guess, both ways. But I'm a producer, engineer, and mixer as well, and my time kind of in the business, I spent time working at the Foo Fighters recording studio in LA, and so growing up listening to a lot of grunge bands, I think I had that inspiration. And then I also was fortunate enough to, in my earlier years, work as an assistant to producer writer Dr. Luke, and work around a lot of pop producers. So I think that it really inspired a lot of the production for all my recordings this year that I've put out. I've been putting out a single a month, and I program, produce, perform, mix, and master all the songs, and then we'll bounce them off my drummer Ryan Carnes, who it's like really nice when you do everything yourself to have like really trusting, fresh perspective and ears, and that's the fun part of our virtual collaboration, and getting his perspective as a drummer, or like his creative input, like how's this chorus sounding. He really helps in the mix process, just to bounce stuff off of someone who I really trust, and his input's really valuable.
Sure, that's so impressive. Yeah, really impressive work, and the recordings sound great. I love everything that I've been listening to for the past, few days, and actually probably the past week or two.
Super cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I really wanted to get a feel. Yeah, anyway, I love that song, and I noticed that you've been releasing singles. So is that just kind of what you've been going for? You're doing singles as opposed to a full album, or could we expect like a full album soon?
So I went into this year kind of planning in this past December and January that I was going to put out a single a month, which I started with in March, and kind of had those first couple months to kind of set up my plans for the year with like touring and setting up the singles, and with the plan of putting out an album at the end of the year. But amongst the current climate of music, I have decided to just continue with singles, and I think I'm going to do the same thing next year. And I haven't really, fully announced that, but I think just kind of letting the songwriting and sounds develop, and for each single to kind of be its own personality. I do sometimes collaborate in features with people, and I kind of don't want to be afraid to try different things and experiment with different production styles, and just kind of see what happens, but also just keep a lot of content and new music coming out, which is super important for me to connect with supporters and listeners that way.
Sure. Doing a single a month, that's, and producing and doing all the mixing and mastering and stuff that you're doing for yourself, that's quite the undertaking. I mean, do you find that giving yourself that deadline like motivates you to work harder, or has there ever been a point where you felt like not ready when you said you were?
Yeah, you know what? I think next year I'm going to space it out a little bit more for the extra time, because I also do the release myself. I have an artist development label and set it up. And so all of this stuff takes a lot of time. With my last single that I put out recently called Something to Believe In, I actually ended up rewriting the song 6 times, which was the most I've ever done that before. And it's just, I just, I was really trying to experiment with some different sounds, and just it took some time to get it right. And I think deadlines to me always really works really, really well, and making myself accountable, and like also a plan and something to build towards. I've always been that way, and always kind of helps gear other artists that way when I'm working in a recording or artist development kind of environment, helping other bands and stuff like that. So I had like some different perspectives from some close friends, and it really made me like, hey, I really should work on this and try and like really dive in and try and experiment. Like on one version of the song, I like rapped on it, and like, I was like really trying to work hard to work on my vocal range and like just just keep writing. And I just kept bouncing stuff off of my drummer Ryan. But yeah, so with that said, it's like I was setting up the release like 5 days before it was coming out, and like ran into like various issues, and that's not ideal for properly setting stuff up. But it was like I'd rather the music be really good, and the extra time, because typically artists need to give themselves at least like 6 weeks in advance from their release date to properly promote and
Yeah.
work a single. So, one just does what they can. I'm my own boss, and I make my own rules, but want to actually, I really care and want to reach people in like a really positive, hopeful way with like really good messages and good songs. So do the best I can.
Girl, you hustle. I admire that, like I love the do it yourself attitude that you have, like today we're talking attitude, and I themed today in your honor because when I was researching you and reading about you, I'm like, I love like look at your picture right there, not like you're screaming attitude with your photograph, right? Your music screams an attitude, but also like learning about all this do it yourself, like everything that you're doing. And i I'm like that, like I everything that I've done has been for myself, or anywhere I've gotten is because I worked my ass off, and I admire somebody else, like seeing an artist like you who's achieved great things, and who's continually growing. I mean, how do you compare yourself? I mean, how do you look at yourself now as opposed to Vanessa Silverman like a decade ago? Like, what's the difference? Your growth process has to have been tremendous with all the work you put in.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I so appreciate you saying that. And like, I always just try and encourage other people and artists, and beyond artists, just people in general, to like, not wait for anyone to give them the okay, but to just go for it, whatever in life drives you. Because if you want something to happen, you have to initiate it. And if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to be visionary about it. I think 10 years ago, I had a band for about 12, 13 years since I was like a teenager, and in LA, and did some good, like, touring, had some really good momentum at certain times. And I think during the last 10 years, I went through huge periods of growth of having different experiences, being on the road, and working on my recording chops, really developing them and working for other artists, and having that perspective. But like there was a couple points where, the whole reason why I initially came to LA as a very young artist was to go on tour and to play music. And at a couple points, I had to sacrifice some really, really good opportunities for myself, and just say, you know what, this is going to be really hard, but I really want to go on the road and tour, and now's my time. And I can be in front of a recording console still part-time, but not full-time, and now's my time to go for it. And I threw everything in storage, and I just said, literally, fuck it. And I'm gonna have to like kind of, I'd done tons of touring before, but I had to like really like relearn it and figure it out, and just say, I'm just gonna put every ounce of whatever I have into this, and that's all that matters. And that I give people a positive message and make them feel good when I play, and uplift them, and do it one person at a time. And I really did think that I was going to be on the road for like 10 years. And at the moment, I'm actually really grateful that I had moved to New York to change environments, and that I wasn't on the road during, when the pandemic broke out. But I learned so much, and you grow as an individual when you take your own career in your hands, and
Mhm.
also help other artists and get that perspective, and understand how things work and how our world works. It goes way beyond just being an artist, but it's like kind of offering, while we're on the planet, whether you're spiritual or not, it's just like, having a mission, and that, it's my mission on earth, to give people music, but in a way where it's felt by something, by passion, and sometimes you have to do it one person at a time, and it's a lot of work. Not everything is easy, and um,
It's
but at
not
the end of the
supposed
day,
to be though. Yeah.
yeah, for anything great, it's like you gotta sacrifice stuff, and um, but yeah, there's been a lot of learning and a lot of growth in the last 10 years for myself, and a lot of it has really paid off, but it takes time, you know.
You must enjoy the business end of it though. I mean, for you to take on all this stuff, I mean, would you consider yourself a musician or a businesswoman first?
I mean, I think I'm both. I feel like I'm equal parts because I understand, it goes beyond, I understand like the major labels and that aspect. And, I worked around it enough, in Los Angeles to understand that. But I understand the grassroots, the core of just connecting with people on an artistry level. And I think it's really important as an artist and a musician now. I mean, for whatever career you're in, to understanding the branding and the marketing of yourself as an artist. When you are relying on you and your whatever your path is, for me, music, when that is your only thing you're doing, you will work. You have to work so hard. You won't afford to be shy. You can't afford to be timid, about what you're doing. You are making a living at it, so you have to be smart and do the math and plan and pre-calculate and figure out how to do it. But I mean, I've always strived to do it in the most authentic way as possible and genuine, because that's just
You,
but it's like how to make it work so you can make a living, and then grow it. So both aspects are so important for the perspective.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's yeah, there's a lot to learn, but I think you'll enjoy it more if you insert the you into what you're doing, right? Because I think initially, like we all want to be, we just want, who wouldn't just love to be the artist, right? And let everybody do everything right for you, right? And take you where you need to go. That's great, but there's also such a beauty in learning the tricks of the trade, and in connecting, and being an indie artist I think is pretty cool because you have the liberty to really connect with people in a more personal way than I think whereas if you're hitting stardom, as wonderful as that is, and to have a record deal, of course, like who wouldn't dream of that, but I mean you're so distant, really. Like you could still be personable in ways, but there's still a distance between you and other people, between me and you. Like I don't feel a huge distance between the two of us, although we're just meeting. Does that make sense? Or am I just
Yeah,
rambling?
absolutely. And there's a division, and I feel like my goal as an artist, and goals change too, but it was always to have like to build that core following and to do it in the most authentic way, where it's like a very career long, so I could like do it till I'm 100 or 90
Yeah.
or whatever it is, and build on it. I think that having the gradual build, with the success, or whatever success means to own person, on the way, and to really learn to enjoy the journey, because it's not really the final destination, and a lot of people don't realize that, and because of that, it's very hard. And going back to what the whole subject of this episode is, about attitude. So it's learning to have the attitude or to find that doing what you're passionate about in this life is so much more important than doing something that you're just doing to, get paid for, pay the bills, and just live, some kind of like unpassionate life. I would much rather always just say, you know what, I'd rather just not do that and just do what I want to do, because it's going to have so much more heart and passion, and people will be able to be affected by it in a positive way, and than to do something that I'm not really for, or to just slide by life and just kind of be floating. But yeah, I mean, it's I think diving into anything that you do that that you're passionate about takes a lot of work, and you have to be along for the journey and the process.
Absolutely. I think that's so well said, and I love that about you. I think that's awesome. Vanessa, so you said that you're doing some artist development for other musicians. What about your production and your mixing? Are you actually doing any of that for anybody else, or just kind of focusing on you?
No, actually, I do a lot of recording and production and co-writing, and mixing and mastering. I happen to just do I wear a lot of hats. And so, yeah, I mean, since the pandemic, I've, been doing more remote stuff, but I did a lot of remote stuff where I was co-writing from the road, mixing from the road. I produce a lot of different artists, and then I have a few artists who are on my artist development label, but I've been mainly focused, I'd say, this year on the recordings. There's numerous artists, I've worked with, everything from punk bands to singer-songwriters, to hard rock bands, and girl bands, and some pop and hip-hop stuff. So yeah, the recording stuff, and now especially is kind of where my focus is at, whenever I'm not doing my own music.
That sounds like so much fun. So, how do you ever sleep? Like, seriously, how do you manage all this? Like, that's a lot.
I don't know. I've had a couple times during this time, honestly, I've had to like step back and be like, oh my God, I've got to go. Like I've learned how to do the self-care more and more, I think, during this time where I have to do the things that are really important, like giving myself. I never had weekends before, ever, before the pandemic. I don't
Yeah.
remember the last time. And now where I've like, the last couple months, I've inserted saying, okay, I need to go like take a break and get a proper perspective and do stuff that's not music related. Like I'm a big fan of bike riding.
Me
And
too. Yay.
I
Kindred
love it.
spirits, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
seriously. I mean, it's amazing. I really took it up during the pandemic, and I was like, I had so much energy, so I was riding like 20, 30 miles every other day. And, like in terms of sleep, that stuff's so important. And learning how to take breaks, just even if it's a small amount of time, which has been really hard for me. I was unable to do it. But that stuff, it really costs you your personal life. I gave up like so much in the past where I wasn't able to give care to relationships, or give the self-care that I needed. I've learned to meditate. So if any people are watching this, I hope from this you can understand that sometimes, giving yourself just the break, just sometimes it's so much more effective than, just pushing till you got kind of nothing left. Because that's definitely what I've done before, with all this, just constantly busy. And then you lose sight of, where you're at because of being exhausted. Or I also just I like to stay busy. I like to do a lot of things. But I think that that's been challenged during this time, where before I've been able to handle a lot. And a couple times during this time, I was like, oh my God, okay, I gotta, Gotta give myself a little break for a minute here, because I've been live streaming and doing everything during this whole time. I think it's
Yeah.
important as an artist right now for me to do that and help other artists, encourage other artists to keep staying creative.
No, I'm happy that you recognize that because that was something I recognized myself throughout all of this. But even so, even with that recognition, it is hard to turn off. I find that at least I was saying to Beau the other night, we went out for a drink and an appetizer, and I was like, sometimes I feel like even when I am resetting or like trying to take my mind off of music, off of this, or anything else, like I have a hard time like really blocking out the work part out of my mind. Like the thoughts are still circulating, and I'm still thinking of things that I want to do or write, or it's really hard.
It's totally hard to turn off. I mean, I used to answer my phone at all hours of the night, and no matter what you're doing, if you're passionate about your what you do, it's like you don't have any limits. You just do it, and but I think this is different now. I think it's important to just balance things out in life. Everything, with balance, but also keep going, keep pushing, and staying active. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that I love about it, but I think when you start as an artist, or I guess anything, if you start to not enjoy it and come resentful of anything, I would stop and do a check, because that's not how you want. That's not how anyone should live life, and that's not. I don't believe that's our purpose here,
Right.
on this planet.
Well, Vanessa, you rock. Thank you for sharing your soul with us. It's yeah, you're awesome. Can you tell our audience where they could be directed to your music and where they could download your latest?
Totally. Thanks again, so much for having me on here, Amanda. And yeah, anybody who's watching, you can check me out at vanessasilvermanofficial.com or Vanessa Silverman Official on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and then you can find all my music and past releases on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and all your other online stores.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vanessa. And we're going to hear one more song from Vanessa towards the end of our program. Before I bring the wonderful James Farley onto screen, I just want to throw a shout out to today's sponsors. Big thank you to our friends, Electronic Merchant Systems here in Rochester. No matter where you are, if you need any help with accepting credit card payments, make sure you contact the Charge Card guys. Compere Rochester, thank you for your support in our community and in our program. And if you're local to Rochester, make sure you order your Salvatore's pizza tonight or any day of the week because it's good stuff. Hey, James, what's up?
How are you, Amanda?
I'm great. Good to see you always, and welcome back to our show.
Thanks for
How have
bringing
you
me back.
been?
I appreciate it. We got a rainstorm and everything today, so
I know. As Vanessa was speaking, I heard like the thunder, like just
yeah.
roaring. Crazy. Well, James, tell our audience a little bit. Could you just tell them a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So, I work in the art of goal-based financial planning. So I work with individuals, families, and businesses throughout the United States around best strategies to achieve the goals that are important to them. So I specialize in retirement accumulation and distribution planning in the most tax-efficient way, and do a lot of work in the business space, both in continuation as well as executive compensation planning. So all that fun money stuff.
All the money stuff. It's all about the money, right? Because I'm starting to get nervous about the money these days. So, I mean, the reason why I brought you back is I think it's appropriate time to check in financially with ourselves. We got a new season on the way. Christmas is around the corner, a brand new year, right? All the things that have been postponed into 2021, weddings, all this stuff that we're missing now. Hopefully, if it, is cool to go to then. But all this stuff is going to pile up, right? And financially, we got to prepare ourselves, right? So I wanted to bring you here today and ask you for some advice. I mean, What advice would you lend to those, still floating amidst COVID-19? I mean, what are some realistic ways we can get our financial life in order for 2021?
So I think that's an amazing question. I think you're absolutely on track to say that this is a great time of the year to look at everything. So I always feel like the fourth quarter, which has just started, we're in the first week of it, is a really good time for reflection to take a look at, how are we doing, right? We had a lot of goals coming into 2020, and this has been a bizarre year. So let's not compare it to a lot of others. But at the same time, we had things that we wanted to accomplish. Do we feel like we've done those things? How do we feel going into a new year? Are there things left unchecked that we can tackle and feel more confident about? So it's a really good time to just revisit the plan and assess how we feel about it, how we feel about our progress, how we feel about how on track we are for the goals that are most important to us. When it comes to a couple additional things that I think are really important to look at, we're spending a lot of time with family this time of year. So it's a good time to just make sure and take inventory of where you are, not just for your own planning, but to make sure that they are in a good place and you're able to protect them. So for those with children or with other moving pieces, they have homes or businesses, making sure your estate plan, visit with your attorney, make sure your will, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, all those things are in order. You probably have open enrollment coming up for your benefits to review if you're working. So make sure you're reviewing that, meeting with your advisor, and again, reflecting on the goals. And I think most importantly, don't carry a lot of financial stress heading into holidays. You need to remember the goal of the holidays is to spend time and make memories. It's not about having things. I mean, if there's one thing that I've seen happen in my own household and my families, I spend time with them over the years, is we need less and less as we get older. So, the kids will be really excited if they get a ton of toys, but they're not going to be angry at you. And the most important thing is the time you spend together, the pictures you have, the things you're going to look back at later. So don't carry a lot of financial stress for that, especially if you feel like you don't have enough money on the sidelines. If there was another lockdown event or you might lose a job, focus on making sure your financial health is there. And that's the best way to give back.
Sure, I think that's great advice. And today's theme is attitude. Finances can make people feel a variety of emotions. It can make them, feel anxiety, happiness, enthusiasm, to, fear. How can setting financial goals change our attitude about money?
So I think just being aware of what you want to accomplish and being cognizant of where you are brings a lot of peace of mind. And so I know that sounds bizarre but a lot of people just tend not to focus on things that can cause stress, and money can absolutely cause stress. But not looking at it and not being aware of where you stand today and what decisions you can make to improve your financial standing will cause more and more stress down the road. It's just kind of kicking the can down the road, if you will. So I feel like being aware of how I'm doing as it relates to my retirement, or reviewing my balance sheet and saying, rates are really low right now. Should I refinance my house? Or things like that. I'd rather be aware of ways that I can continually improve my financial situation, because when that part's taken care of, I'm able to be there for my family, the people that I care about, my clients, etc. If I don't feel like I have enough money, or if I'm concerned about paying the bills on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, I'm not able to give my energy to my job, to my relationships, to anything else. So I think being aware, digging in, taking a look at budgeting, where your money actually goes, and then actually setting bigger goals and reviewing and reflecting on what's really important to you. It allows you to align your dollar with a vision with intention, instead of just spending without purpose, which is the way we tend to live. So I feel like when you have purpose behind it, you save for the things that are really important to you, that dream vacation, that home for my family, or retirement. I'd rather be aware of how I'm doing in regards to those things than, pick my head up out of the sand when I'm approaching when I'd like to retire and hoping I did enough.
James, what do you think, like, for somebody who just doesn't know where to start with their finances, and they're just making a decision to come to you and they're saying, I need help with my finances. What do you think are the important questions that they should be asking?
That's a fantastic question. So to take
Sorry,
it,
that one that
no,
one was off the cuff.
no, that's great. So I think a few things, when you're serious about money and hopefully, or about, your financial health, because I think it is a health thing and it carries over to your attitudes and everything else too. I think a lot of the reason that someone would sit down with someone to seek additional advice is they feel like they're doing things and hoping they're working in the right direction. They're just trying to verify they're doing as well as they thought and want to know what they don't know, right? But the first things that we can always do, regardless of your situation, whether you sit down with anyone or not, is to kind of take inventory of your budget, of your cash in versus expenses out, right? It's a really simple thing to do. If you want kind of rough numbers on where things should be, just a gross exaggeration or example would be your fixed expenses should be somewhere between 40 and 60% of your income, right? And so that's, health insurance, that's a mortgage payment or rent, that's your car, things like that. Your discretionary should be limited to maximum around 20%, but it could obviously be higher if you keep your fixed expenses very low. And then your savings and investing side of things should be at a minimum of 20%. So money going towards safety and building emergency funds for the future and down payments and things like that. And more significantly, saving for retirement or education for our kids or grandkids or those that are most important to us. If you can keep that 20% protected and solely work on building that for emergencies, retirement, and other things, the rest of it will work itself out. But finding out if that money is even available or where it's going, I personally like to look at a budget both in idea by saying where I think the money goes, and then actually looking at the last 2 months worth of bank statements on where did it go, because I think people are not familiar or aren't as realistic about where their money goes on a regular basis.
Sure.
Yeah. Outside of that, it's just trying to find ways to be most efficient and knowing with confidence that they have a plan for all the what ifs long term.
Yeah, that's great advice. James, I mean, like right now, like throughout COVID-19, think about it. Like, I mean, we started a podcast, but there's so many people that are starting businesses, like indie businesses or, little small side businesses that are internet based. Do you have any advice? I mean, do you see that as, I kind of look at it as an investment in a way. Do you agree? I mean, do you see a benefit to maybe starting off small with something? And what advice would you give to somebody like us?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people, whether it be by choice or not by choice. Some people lost their jobs and, they're brilliant people. They have skill sets and said, hey, I'm going to work in this and run my own company or consulting business or whatever the case might be. Or they've had an idea for a long time and said, hey, this is a great time to test it and see what it looks like. So listen, I think self-employment's fantastic. It provides unlimited upside. I work for myself. I've been doing it for well over a decade now, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It also, however, requires a lot of self-discipline and is not for everybody, because even though you have unlimited upside, you have a pretty significant downside too. So I would make sure, I think it's a brilliant thing to focus on if you have a passion, wherever your passion is. If it allows you to make money too, then that's great. Make sure, one, that it will allow you to make enough money to take care of your family and do the things that you love long term. Because if you can do what you love every day, but you're not going to make enough money to pay the bills, then maybe that needs to continue to stay as a hobby, quite frankly. But if we can say, hey, this is a viable business and there's definitely a way for us to build it, grow it, and this might even be a part of our legacy because our family will be involved or we'll sell it or whatever the case might be, just make sure, A, you spend enough time to business plan, B, you're bringing in a core team around you. So you need to have an advisor, an attorney, an accountant, all of those pieces, a banker in place that are there to hold you accountable and work with you on your plan and give you feedback of the things that you don't know yet, because that's what we deal with every day. So,
Yeah.
So embrace what you don't know. Make sure you find people that specialize in it, and focus on the vision of that business and what you're trying to create, and how you can maximize the efforts you're putting in.
Good stuff, James. And speaking of good stuff, all finances aside, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Farley's Friends? I love that you do this. And where is it at right now currently with COVID? And, I'm sure events have been affected.
Yeah, so thank you for asking about that. So, as you know, and not everybody might know, but I'm on the board for a charity that I helped found with some friends called Farley's Friends. We do philanthropic work here in Rochester where we give back to other local charity organizations that do great work in our community and deserve to have a light shown on them. So 2020, has been a struggle. A lot of our events, most of the fundraising we do is event oriented, as you can imagine. So with restrictions over getting together in large groups and for the benefit of everyone's health, we have decided to punt a lot of those things here in 2020. We've been able to thankfully give back to some different charities through matching programs this year, through some of our dollars, as well as supported some workers over at Rochester General Health and their custodial department for all the extra work that they've been doing in 2020. But keep posted. Stay looking for Farley's Friends. There should be an announcement soon. We have a meeting this week, and we should be doing some sort of online fundraising opportunity to give back before the end of 2020. So we wish we could be doing it with you and see your faces live, but if we can all participate together, I think we can make a lot of good things happen before the end of the year.
Sure. I think that there's still money there to be raised, and just keep at it. Where can our audience donate to your cause, and where could they find out more about it?
So you can find friends at farleysfriends.org or .com. I think both direct to the same thing. Right now it's kind of just static. It shows more of our golf tournament and other things like that is not happening until next year. Probably the best way to engage with us is on Facebook if you find Farley's Friends on there, as we keep updated events and announcements on there, at least monthly.
Great. And also, if they want to contact you regarding financial planning or assistance, can you tell us where they could get you also?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You can find me at jamesfarley.nm.com, or just Google James Farley, Northwestern Mutual, or financial advisor. You'll find me pretty quick.
And James, do you take clients outside of Rochester?
Yeah, I do. I've got clients all over the country, California, Maine, pretty much everywhere. I don't have anybody in Alabama yet, if you want to refer me someone down there. But I do a lot of work in the tech sector and a lot in the business space and engineers. So I've got, especially the Northeast and the West Coast, I work extensively with people there, and a lot of retirees down south.
Awesome. And I highly recommend James. He takes very good care of myself and my family. So, if there's nobody better or more knowledgeable than him in my eyes personally. And James, thank you also. He's a patron of our show here, Afternoon Cocktail, and we really appreciate your support. So thanks so much, James Farley. Vanessa, are you ready to rock us out with one last song?
Definitely. That was so great. I love hearing about James's numbers and just advice. That was really wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good to hear, right? We all need it.
Definitely. This song is called Down.
Your heart is fragile, baby, just like the cracks in the dirt. Always looking down lately, do not feel hurt. And if you're sad and lonely, just stop Won't let you fall, won't let you break. When it feels like won't let you hurt, won't let you wake. When it feels like you're down, 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 down.
Awesome. That was the music of Miss Vanessa Silverman. Thank you again, Vanessa. Make sure you download her singles on you can find her on Spotify, iTunes, all the networks. Make sure you do that because she's great and her music sounds awesome. So if anything will pull everything into focus for you, I'll tell you it's having a 4-year-old child. At least it's pulled everything into focus for me. Attitude is the number one thing these days that I find myself in disagreement with him constantly. I mean, we're finding ourselves correcting his response and reaction to everything from literally taking a bath and putting on his shoes to not eating cookies for breakfast. He's temperamental, he's obstinate and stubborn, kind of like somebody I know really well. However, he's experiencing the height of his emotions without the experience of knowing how to truly handle his emotions. Timeout is a regular practice we instill when things escalate. And while I'll heartbrokenly listen to him cry sometimes, still angered and frustrated, it's in that moment that I realize that timeout is not only necessary for him, it is for me too. Because just as he is responding to certain situations, so are we. Because while we are teaching him the ways of life, how to properly behave, how to properly interact, making sure he doesn't parrot the bad things we or others have said, we are empathetically adjusting our attitudes to accommodate the true lessons at hand for him to gain an understanding of. Truth is, we all can use a little attitude adjustment time after time. All these rules still apply no matter what age we are. These times of crisis have our emotions running high. We've become obstinate and unfiltered with our opinions, and our attitudes towards one another have shifted. Attitude encompasses more than just our personality. It truly is at the core of how we move forward through every situation, how we behave, and how we communicate with those around us. Learning to monitor your attitude and its impact on your work performance, relationships, and everyone around you is one of the most important steps you could take towards achieving your greatest potential in life. So just remember that inner child still lives. So let us not forget the progress we've made in our growth. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Afternoon Cocktail. Afternoon Cocktail is now available on all podcast networks. So make sure you catch up on your inspiration and keep spreading good energy to those around you. Big thank you to Beau Productions. Again, shout out to James Farley of Northwestern Mutual and to Maiden Voyage Studios out in Fairport. Big thank you to Compier Rochester, Salvatore's Pizzeria, and Electronic Merchant Systems. You guys have an awesome hump day. We'll see you back here Friday.